So late into the night, or Japan time lunchtime, Takara's PR account for their Transformers PR Twitter account specifically, Transformers underscore PR on Twitter, dropped a teaser image that was extremely vague of a up and coming Generation Selects figure that showed a very familiar silhouette. Now, it had some kanji written under it, and it translated more or less to the Wild Beast Senshi is returning, the Wild Beast Warrior is returning, or is back. And it seems like we're going to be getting yet another Combiner Gestalt team through the Generation Selects, just like we did before with God Neptune and the King Poseidon crew. Now, looking at this silhouette, it's pretty clear that this is using the Volcanicus, Power of the Primes, Grimlock team, Dinobot team combiner. The question is, what are they going to repaint this into? Now, we could kind of like dive into this and go like, well, the obvious answer that so many of us has been saying for years since we even had the old Power Core Combiner Dinobot combine team is, where's our Dino King? And considering this is something coming out from Japan, it kind of leads more credence to that, because if you're going to do Dino King, you're going to release it in a region where that character actually has some kind of nostalgia and cultural impact for the Transformer fans over there. Transformer Victory isn't really a thing over here in America. Yes, there is people that have watched the show back in the day, and many of us, but the overall cultural impact of it is strongly more predominant over there in Japan. And it's weird because, in the past we've gotten, some Japanese exclusive characters that only came out on our side, like Black Shadow or Sky Shadow, as they used to use his trademark, and a few others. But the point is that it almost leads more credence to that. I mean, let's think about it this way, right? Let's be realistic here. You have a Dinobots Power of the Primes combiner team mold, and they're presented to you, and you have to do a repaint for Generation Selects. What do you do, really? I mean, you pretty much are like, okay, do you do G2 colors? Is that something that holds enough weight that you could do a G2 colored combiner team, and you could actually tackle some of those other members that have never gotten their G2 colors outside of like box art leaks from back in the day, which I'll be honest with you would be intriguing. And it would lead more to also my second part with this when I really deconstruct the silhouette here. But Dino King seems more likely, just because it's more, in my opinion, going in that direction of what would make sense, from it being, number one, they like doing repaints that are different factions. That always goes well with them. Number two, something that people have really wanted for years, and if you're going to complete your combiner shelving with all your other Power of the Prime molds, a Dino King would be a lot more welcome than, let's say, just a G2 combiner team. Although, the G2 combiner team, people would almost leave that uncombined because it would look more visually nice that way. Now, when you look at the image here, two things to take away. You have the combiner body and the silhouette in the front, but you have an extra thing going on in the back there. Now, Dino King himself is a 6-man combiner team. Volcanicus is 5, like the original mold. Yeah, it could technically be 6 if you take the slash mold and you kind of stick it on there somewhere, but really it's a 5 combiner team. So it's a possibility that they maybe have another member from a Power Combiner, a Power of the Primes mold, all heavily, extremely retooled, and they just somehow work something out that this could be a 6 combiner. That's a possibility. I mean, we look at, again, the God Neptune, King Poseidon, Piranacon, crazy retooling that we got from them prior to that, and it's a possibility. It's a very strong possibility. But it's just me at the same time going like, did they really take like that Grimlock mold and retool like crazy to get the Dino King members? Did they really go that route? Maybe. But the second thing that I want to point out with this silhouette here is the eyes or the visor on this character are blue. Now, the original Volcanicus had a red visor. The way that he looked in the comic books and in the Machinima Machinima Go 90 series, they were red. So it was always red for this character. Even when you go into like even the Transformer TCG, like it was always red, that visor. But it's blue here. So now I don't want to get knee deep into the, color variations and stuff like that. But when you're talking a blue visor, it's always an Autobot thing. It's always a strong indication of an Autobot thing, at least in lore, even though the actual Volcanicus himself had a red visor. Maybe this blue indicates that it's a G2 repaint, because the problem is with Dino King is he had a red visor, so it's, I don't know. It's very bizarre here. If I had to really lean on what makes sense, it would be Dino King. Dino King just makes more sense. It also kind of makes sense of what's going on behind the character here. And considering what we've had in the past, already seeing how they took previous molds of Power of the Primes and retooled them like crazy to give us King Poseidon, I could see this happening too. Kind of, let's leave the Power of the Prime era of molds, but before we do, finish those last few combiner teams that we haven't done yet that could be done realistically. I mean, we would love to get a Road Caesar, but how would we get a 3 combiner done properly out of Power of the Prime molds that could look like a legitimate Road Caesar? That would require practically starting from the ground up rather than retooling. So at the end of the day, this is very fascinating. It really, really is. And hopefully we're going to learn more information as time progresses. But it's just me going realistically, I pose this question to the listeners. You have those Dinobot molds at your disposal, and you even have a little bit of a budget for retooling to do something. What do you do with that? Do you go the G2 route? Do you do the Dino King retool and repaint for the Japanese market like they did with God Neptune? It's something that's very peculiar. Very, very peculiar. There's not many roads you could go with the Dinobot molds in terms of repaints. There really isn't. And especially when you're now get into that extra wrinkle of a Dinobot combiner, it really makes people always, go, whoa, you got to do Dino King. And I mean, this question came up many years ago. I want to say it was BotCon 2013 or 12. I remember Aaron Archer was doing the Hasbro product preview panels, and someone asked about the Power Core combiners, and they said, would you do a Dino King repaint of the Power Core Combiner Dinobots? And even Aaron Archer was kind of that would be something cool to do one day. And of course, it kind of happened, but it didn't happen. Years later, my buddy Hydra, he would end up writing for the Power Core Combiner Japanese import, and they turned that mold into one member of Dino King, but they didn't give an extensive repaint. They kind of just ported it over straight up. So we really didn't get that Dino King repaint ultimately in the end. But the point is, the idea is on the floor to take Dinobot combiners and turn them into Dino King. It's been done before in a I don't want to say half-assed, but in a half-assed kind of way. So this is really interesting. Again, all I'm doing is looking at this image. Blue visor, not really Decepticon-like or Destron-like. But what's going on behind his back there? Is that a third member? Is that a third attachment piece? If it's now 5 up to 6, that is Dino King. So what's going on here? What is really happening? We're definitely going to find out sooner or later, because this is something that's going to probably drop into our laps, and it's going to be exactly like God Neptune through the Takara-Tomy Mall website, where you're going to have to buy a box set probably, or the individual members. Maybe you might even get an opportunity on Hasbro Pulse, but this is very fascinating. What do you think it is? I gave my 2 cents. I could totally be wrong here. It's just me trying to really make sense of things. The Wild Beast Senshi, the Wild Beast Warrior, is back. Someone's returning. Is it the return of Dino King after all these years? Is it the return of the Dinobots who've never really been gone? We don't know. Let's find out. Let me know what you think. Who do you think it is? And hopefully we'll find out sooner more than later.